Good afternoon, classmates, and to our instructor, good afternoon, sir. So I am Jelma Sintino, BSED English 4, and we are going to report about the topic, which is the literary criticism, together with my partner, Miss Luisa Lopez Estoril. And I am going to report about the literary theory and then the types of literary criticism, and then the other subtopic will be reported by Miss Luisa Estoril. So what is literary theory? Let me define first in my own understanding if what is a literary theory. So literary theory is a body of ideas and method in which we can use it in understanding the works of literature. So literary theory, sometimes designated as critical thinking theory, is a set of concepts and intellectual assumptions in which rests the work of explaining or interpreting literary text. It is a body of ideas and methods we use in the practical reading of literature. It is a description of the underlying principles, one might say the tools by which we attempt to understand. So there are someone who says that literary theory, it seems like a tools because literary theory is somewhat like we gather some information on how we critique or how we apply the methods in giving a critique to such literary works of literature. And it also formulates the relationship between author and his work. Literary theory develops the significance of race, class, and gender for literary study, both from standpoint of biography of the author and an analysis of their thematic presence within text. So it includes the class, race, and the gender for literary study because in this race, class, and gender being included in the theory so that we can understand why. It is usually includes discussion of the work's content and integrates your ideas with other insights gained from research. It may be positive or negative bias and may be a study of an individual piece of literature or an author's body of work. So the literary theory, it attempts that the reader will understand everything about not only the works of literature, but including the life of the author that's supported by facts. And then let's go to types of literary criticism. So since we're done talking about the literary theory, so I think that we all know about the literary theory, if why there are things that we need to know, especially the background of the author's life in real life, and then the races, the gender, and everything that we must know about the literary theory was being tackled already. So way back when we are third year, we are already done about the literary criticism. So I think that all of you has a background knowledge about my topic and Estoril Luisa's topic. And now let us go to types of literary criticism. So I know that all of you knows about what are those types of literary criticism. So biographical criticism. So I think that you have your own understanding of what is a biographical criticism, even if I will not discuss it right now. Biographical criticism. a form of literary criticism which analyzes a writer's biography to show relationship between the author's life and their works of literature. So biographical criticism, it talks about the factual happening or the background of the authors, and also about if what is his or her works in literary. And so that in knowing the biographical criticism or the background of the author, we can understand the every author, if why he or she wrote like this, like that, or how she felt or he towards the works. Biographical criticism is often associated historical biographical criticism, a critical method that sees a literary work as a reflection of its author's life and times. So don't you wonder that the biographical criticism is associated with the historical or historical biographical criticism, because the both are being entwined, where it seems like they are similar. Is often associated historical biographical criticism because we are going to dig deep about the biographical criticism. Biographical criticism is often associated historical biographical because we are going to dig deep about the biography of the author to understand its literary piece. Let's move to reader response criticism. So I know that from the word reader response, so you have your own understanding if what does it mean. So reader response criticism, this type of criticism attempts to describe what happens in the reader's mind while interpreting a text. So as a reader, in behalf that we have an individual level of analyzing text, or as a reader, we have our own interpretation towards the literary work of literature or any a piece of information that we read. So as my knowledge before, when I was third year, so that there is no single interpretation towards the text. A reader response critic might also explore the impact of a particular text on his or her ideas or values. So like what I said ago, that we have we are different from each other, and then we have also our different opinions towards the work of literaries. So every reader might give their feedback or opinion, positive or negative. It depends to them on how they understood the literary work or how they appreciate the works of the literature. So we are done about the reader response criticism, and let's go to historical criticism. Move to historical criticism. So from the word historical criticism, it is the opinion of the readers towards a literary piece, work of literature. So historical criticism, it seeks to understand a literary work by investigating the social, cultural, and intellectual context that necessarily includes the artist, biography, and milieu. A key goal for historical critics is to understand the effect of a literary work upon its original readers. So all the literary works was found in this historical criticism because all the literary works was written in this kind of approach. And now let's go to psychological criticism. So from the word psycho, so you know what does it mean? Sure. This approach reflects the effect of modern psychology had upon both literature and criticism. So the psychological criticism approach to literary. This includes psychoanalytic theories that change our notions of human behavior by exploring new or controversial areas like wish fulfillment, sexuality, and the unconscious, and repression, as well as expanding our understanding of how language and symbols operate by demonstrating their ability to reflect unconscious fears or desires. So this kind of approach to literary is we can explore ourselves into different kind of imagination, because this psychological, it is your interpretation or your advanced interpretation towards towards a piece of information that you read. Like for example, you are dreaming something, or let us say you are dreaming that there is a snake who bites you. I mean, you are bitten by a snake, so what comes into your mind? So, in this approach, we are going to connect your dream into the psychological criticism. So this approach is very helpful when you are reading a literary piece of literature, because you can interpret, or you can advance your interpretation to the work of literary or a piece of information. In psychological criticism, it includes the id, ego, and superego. And so since we're done about the psychological criticism, let's go to Marxist criticism. So this word comes from Karl Marx. So Marxist criticism, it views literary works as reflections of the social institutions from which they originate. It's not merely a sociology of literature concerned with how literary works get published and whether they mention the working class. So I think that we can also include the female authors in behalf of these Marxists. For further explanation about the Marxist criticism, so in our society there is unfair treatment of the government and into the lower class people. So let us connect this into the literary part of literature, that there is a book which we can say that there is an unfair treatment. Like for example, the female or the women was economy is included with the Marxist criticism. For example, if you are rich, or if you have the so in this Marxist criticism, if you are belong to higher class, so you are powerful and the people who are around you. And so since Marxist criticism was done, so let's move to gender criticism. I know that all of you has an idea about the gender criticism and of course the feminist criticism. So let us define or differentiate first the gender criticism to feminist criticism. So when we say gender criticism, it includes the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, female, and queer. While the feminist criticism, it talks only about the women only. So the gender criticism, this type of criticism examine how sexuality identity influences the creation and reception of literary works. So if you are belong to this, if you are either lesbian, gay, transgender, or so your gender may affect to your works, or your works may affect to your gender. Why is it? Because they only accept those they accept works of those men. So in my background knowledge about this, when I was third year college, so formalist critics or formalist criticism has a new name, which is the new criticism. So when formalist, so if you are going to critique such literary work or piece, so you should only focus on the text by text. If you are going to critique the literary work using the formalist criticism, you are not going to divert about what has written in the book or what is the literary piece. If you are going to critique, you're just only focusing if what was the written text in the book or in the article. So let's go to moral criticism. So moral criticism, moral or intellectual criticism is not only to discover meaning, but also to determine whether works of literature are both true and significant. So you're not only going to analyze or get the moral of the story or poem or whatever, but you're just going to define it if it is true or it is existing. And let's move to feminist criticism. So from the word femi, so it talks about the women. Let's go to feminist criticism. So from the word fem or femi, so it talks about the women. So feminist criticism is concerned political, social, and psychological oppression of women. So let us cite first the political. So as I know that there are some politicians who runs for different positions. So if you are a if you are a woman, so they might dislike you or they do not vote you because of your are a female. So feminist criticism is also concerned with less obvious forms of marginalization, such as the exclusion of women writers from the traditional literary canon. The writings or all the authors' writings was held in the literary canon. So I would like to clarify or to make my statement about the feminist criticism that all the authors in the literary canon are men, but I have a background knowledge about this, that all the literary works was held in the literary canon, which some of the readers thought that all the authors is men, but they don't know that there are some authors who use a pen name. For example, Charles Dickinson. Charles Dickinson is not a man, but Charles Dickinson is a female. Charles is just a pen name. Because if you are a female, then you're going to publish your works, all your works. They will not accept it. All about the feminist criticism, and let's move to genre criticism. So genre criticism, so as I know about the genre criticism, it helps us to identify whether the works of literature is true or not, non-fiction or fiction. So genre criticism A method within rhetorical criticism analyzes texts and terms of their genre, the set of generic expectations, conventions, and constraints that guide their production and interpretation. So if you know what is the genre of the book that you read, so you can identify whether it's true or not. And let's move to social criticism. So from the word social, so how you are going to social with one another. So it is a form of academic or journalistic criticism focusing on sociological issues in contemporary society, in particular with respect to perceived injustices and power relations in general. So as we all know that there are some unfair treatment or there are injustices that we encountered or we understood when we read the literary works or a certain works of literature. So let's move to comparative criticism. So it focuses on the study of literature from different cultures, nations, and genres, and explores relationships between literature and other forms of cultural expression. So let us focus about these expressions. So we have a different authors and different country, and then the way they speak or the way the authors on how he or she wrote his or her works, we can identify if what is his or her cultural or what country he or she came from through the expression. So since I am done discussing about the subtopics,
To continue the report of Miss Jelma Centino, my partner. So it talks about the approaches in teaching literary criticism. So first is the information based. It gives knowledge and information to students. So it is a teacher-centered and demands a lot of teachers' input in giving students various contents of literary, like on historical, political, cultural, and social background. So as a teacher, he or she have to give contents about the literary text in either the history, political. Again, so as a teacher, he or she have to give contents about literary text in either the history, political, cultural, and social background or information of the literary piece. That's all about the information-based approach. Next is the language model. It integrates language and literature as a source to improve students' language. So it comprises paraphrastic, stylistic approach, and language-based approach. It uses literature in teaching different language structures from the literary text to students. So in this approach, it uses literature in teaching the different functions of language that includes grammar, of course, the vocabulary, and the structures of language. Another is paraphrastic approach. It is primarily paraphrasing and rewording text to simpler language or use other languages to translate it. So, from the word itself, paraphrastic means you have to paraphrase for the student to understand what the literary piece means. In this approach, it will help students to interpret the text meaningfully and develops language awareness and knowledge. Develop language awareness by paraphrasing the text. So another is the language-based approach. It improves students' language proficiency and incorporate literature and language skills among the students. So it helps to pay attention to the way the language is used when studying literature. It is a student-centered and activity-based for productive use of language. So this approach will help the students in productive use of language by means of the activities, and it will also help develop the skills of the students, the language skills specifically of the students. Another is personal growth model. So it enables students to develop their language, character, and emotions by connecting and responding the issues and themes to their lives. So it comprises personal response approach and moral philosophical approach. This approach enables the students in developing their language, their character, by relating and connecting them to their experiences, and from that experiences, they will gain some lesson out of it. Another is personal response approach. It encourages students to make sense of their experiences and personal lives with text themes. So, as an approach that encourages students to make sense of their experiences and personal lives with the text themes, it engages individual in literary text reading as personal fulfillment and pleasure that can be met while developing the language and literary competency. And the last one is moral philosophical approach. It helps the students to be aware of moral and philosophical and identify them that lies in their readings. Okay, in moral philosophical approach, learners seek moral values from a particular literary text while reading it. So students will seek moral values or a lesson while reading the literary piece. With this approach, teachers are able to direct students to achieve self-realization as well as self-understanding while interpreting literary works. So that was all about the approaches in teaching literary criticism. So the information-based approach, the language model approach, paraphrastic approach, language-based approach, personal growth model, personal response approach, moral philosophical approach. Those are the approaches in teaching literary criticism. So I think that was all about our topic, the literary criticism, underpinning theories as an approach in teaching literature.
So that was all about our topic. Again, I am Jelma Centino together with my partner,
Luisa Estorio.
and that would be all. Thank you.